Good evening, family, and welcome to the Signal Live. I'm Angela Rye.
What's up, Angela Rye? I'm Garrison Hayes. Every week, we come together to tune in to the pulse of the people, the stories, the struggles, and the strategies shaping our community right now.
Happy to be with my good brother Garrison. And before we dive in, let's be clear about what the Signal Live really is, because this is not your run of the mill news show.
That's right. The Signal Live is the flagship program of the State of the People TV, a 100% volunteer powered network built by and for us, the Black community. Everyone you see, from anchors to editors, producers to chat moderators, everyone is giving their time and talent because we believe in one mission: to uplift our people and build power through truth.
State of the People TV started with our 24-hour marathon to stand up for our people during the president's first joint address to Congress earlier this year. Then, State of the People took our network on the power tour to stand in the gap for our people around the country. Garrison, you were there.
I was
And while
there.
that work continues, we are building something historic with State of the People TV, a Black media network anchored in collaboration, not competition. We're partnering with Black-owned streaming platforms, independent creators, and community storytellers to tell our stories in our voices on our terms. And it starts with this show, The Signal Live.
Every week, the Signal Live features revolving anchors, meaning that you'll see different trusted voices at this desk, from journalists and scholars to artists and activists. Each host will bring their own lens and lived experience to this show because we believe that no one can tell the full story of our people, but together we can. Now, why do we call it the Signal, Angela?
Well, we call it the signal because it's that truth frequency we can all tune into when we cut through the noise, silence the chaos, and focus on what matters most: our community, our culture, and our collective power. It's kind of like this, Garrison.
I like that. Well, listen, the signal is clear in that case. We start tonight with Black business experts with a segment that we're calling CVS Receipts: Black Businesses and the Government.
See, and they didn't pay for that, but it is day 23. And you've seen the headlines. It's a government shutdown that has gone on for far too long. And what's missing from the headlines is the real brutal human impact, the many ways our community continues to pay the price: missed paychecks, delayed contracts, closed childcare centers, stressed out families and family members. This is not an abstract policy fight, it's a people fight.
That's right. These people are going to help us unpack what this shutdown means, not just for wallets, but for Black businesses specifically, because economic justice is racial justice.
And we'll move from the economy to voting rights with a special in depth one on one conversation with two of my favorite lawyers, Judith Brown Dianis and Janae Nelson, who is the president and director counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. She just argued the Louisiana versus Calais case before the Supreme Court just last week.
And she did a phenomenal job, if
She
I
did.
may say so. That's an unfiltered look at how this moment of voter suppression, court rollbacks, and attacks on civil rights echoes through our daily lives. What does it mean to keep fighting for freedom when the rules keep changing?
And later, we're closing the night with a conversation that feeds the soul. Black man, we see you.
Hmm.
It's a space for Black men who are building, protecting, and healing our community during this time of testing and transformation.
You know, it feels good to be seen, Angela. I have to
I
say.
mean, and I got big glasses because I'm
Well,
real blind.
I love that. I love that. We'll share real talk and real solutions about how we care for each other when the world is trying to wear us down. Angela, we probably kicking you out of the conversation for that one, but you are welcome to come back. I will say you're welcome to come back.
Good, because we always have a benediction. It's not Black church, but we would be wrong if in these times we did not do something spiritual. And to that end, we'll end with a word, a moment of reflection and renewal. Tonight's word comes from the incomparable, and she preceded me as a CBC executive director, Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner. She is the CEO and co-founder of the Skinner Leadership Institute. She's been mentoring leaders of faith and justice for decades.
Because here at the Signal Live, we don't just close with commentary. We close with clarity and conviction. I like that. I
Yeah, I
like
mean,
that a lot.
we try. We got some good writers and whatever. So we invite y'all to be a part of this. Tell us where you're watching from, and sadly, tell us how this shutdown is already touching
Mm.
your world. Please drop your city or your story in the chat. We want to hear from you. We want to make sure we engage with you, and we want you to know not just the Black man, but Black woman, Black person, we see you. Our chat moderators are here, and they'll feature your comment live on screen if they can, but we're definitely going to make sure that we see you and acknowledge your commentary.
Yeah, if you're watching on the State of the People TV or on YouTube, make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Those things really matter. They actually make a huge difference. They actually help the Signal Live grow, and that's something that you can do for us if you appreciate this programming.
All right, Garrison, let's get into it. It's the Signal Live, and our first story is CVS receipts, Black businesses, and the government shutdown. Let's tune in and turn up for the people. Okay, so we are going to jump right into this conversation. It is day 23 because legislators are at an impasse on affordable health care. That is what the holdup is about with this shutdown. Nearly 900,000 federal employees have been furloughed, meaning they're forced to stay home without pay, and millions more are working without paychecks just to keep essential services going. Those TSA officers you're seeing at the airport, they're called TSOs. They are working for free. Tell them thank you. And just today, the Senate failed to pass measures to pay essential workers. 12 Senate votes later, people are still in harm's way, and there is no end in sight. Nearly 1 in 5 federal workers is Black. So when agencies like Health and Human Services, HUD, and TSA shut down or delay paychecks, it's our families who feel it first. Programs that feed our children, fund our clinics, and support Black-owned businesses are paused or they are completely at risk. From SNAP benefits to small business loans, vital lifelines are on hold, while families and communities are left to fight to survive. Tonight, we are going to talk to some folks who know about Black business and know about what's at stake. And we have two extraordinary voices, two people who are family to me. Donald Cravens Jr., who is the interim president and CEO of the National Minority Supplier Development Council, also the former Minority Business Development Agency head and was the director. And then Alfonso David, attorney Alfonso David, who is the president of the Global Black Economic Forum. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for being here. There's so much to get into, and I think so often we talk about the shutdown through the lens of employees for the federal government, folks whose work may be impacted, but very rarely do we talk about this through the lens of Black-owned businesses. And there's a couple of things that have happened that I really want to get into. Don, I saw on your social media how you are calculating this loss from hearing from some of your members and some other businesses who are impacted. Can you talk about the loss you're hearing about so far in this shutdown and the report you all have released?
Yes, Angela. Well, look, Angela, thank you so much, and you and Garrison for letting me join you on the Signal Live. This is amazing, and I'm just honored to be one of the folks to be able to be part of this amazing movement, this amazing information sharing. And whenever I get to partner with Alfonso, he's my lawyer too, Angela. Right. So I just want you to know when I get to be with Alfonso, it's always a good night. Ladies and gentlemen, this impact, and you said it right, Angela, especially here in the DMV where I am, where we've got a large amount of our Black businesses that have become successful Black businesses because they were doing business with the federal government. They are absolutely feeling it. And so you're right, our workers are feeling it, but our Black entrepreneurs are feeling it. The National Minority Supply Development Council, we were started in 1972, really to help Black businesses and minority businesses do business with large business, but also to prepare them to do business with the federal government. And so what we are seeing are these impacts that are not going to just go away after the shutdown is over. What we're seeing is that these businesses are facing losses because of contract and payment delays. They're facing losses because there's a reduced demand for the federal government to buy things, right? If the government is shut down, the buildings are shut down, there's no need for food to feed the employees or paper or whatever the supplies may be. We're seeing a staffing reduction because a lot of our businesses now are having to lay off people in their own businesses. We're seeing that they're having to borrow money in order for Peter to pay Paul and just to make it through those bridge. And that money's not free. You borrow that money, you got to pay interest on that money. And so what we're seeing is an estimated loss of about 400 to 450 million today. It's only growing as the shutdown continues. And when we surveyed our 15,000 certified MBEs, mostly a lot of Black businesses in there, about a third of them are feeling the impact of this shutdown. And so as it continues, we just see more and more impact, more and more loss, and it's permanent loss. It's you fire somebody, it's hard to bring somebody back. You borrow money, you can't just give it back and say, hey, let's act like this didn't happen. And so it's going to be losses that our businesses and our entrepreneurs are going to feel for a long, long time.
And on that point, I want to go to you, Alfonso. You flagged something for me recently, which was this interim final rule related to disadvantaged business enterprises and the striking of race and gender from consideration of how you even become a DBE. And so I want to rest there for a moment, because that is also impacting people. The rule is about 3 weeks old at this point. And I don't think that our community even really knows about it, despite the fact that we hire each other more than any other racial group in this country.
Yeah, Angela, first, thank you for having me on. Just to give this a little bit more context, and it's always great to be here with Don. The federal government spends more than $700 billion every year, $700 billion. And of the $700 billion, less than 2% of those dollars go to Black contractors, 2%. Less than 6% goes to all minority contractors. And on the very first day of the federal government shutdown, the federal government issued a new emergency rule that essentially redefines what we normally call DBE programs, disadvantaged business enterprise programs. Those programs essentially were created in 1980s under President Ronald Reagan. And the purpose of those programs was to provide opportunities for Black and brown contractors in the transportation space. So you think of our airports, or you think of our roads, all of those transportation contracts. These programs were created in the 1980s to help Black and brown contractors get an opportunity to have those contracts. Now, those programs through the federal agencies have been changed. On the very first day of the federal government shutdown, they removed race and they removed gender as factors in defining disadvantaged business enterprises. That is hugely significant. As Don mentioned before, Black and brown businesses are disproportionately being impacted by this shutdown. And when you change the rules of opportunities for Black and brown contractors, the impact is going to be severely, severely impactful for these contractors. Keep in mind that more than 22% of the firms out there are minority-owned businesses, 22%. But they only make up 6% of the federal government contracts. So when you change the rules, that 6% becomes 3%, 2%, 1%. And this has real-world consequences for contractors that are relying on these contracts to support their families and to grow their businesses.
And Alfonso, to this point, and this is for both of you, but we saw Mayor Andre Dickens, who is trying to be a torchbearer, legacy carrier of Maynard Jackson's legacy in Atlanta, refuse federal funding because Donald Trump wants them to ban DEI opportunities for airport concessionaires. Him saying, I'm saying no to that meant that the Atlanta airport was no longer eligible for $37.5 million in airport funds. What do you say to other elected officials who are considering these same kind of making these same types of calculations, especially at a time like this?
Well, I'll start, Angela and team. What's interesting to me, and Alfonso brings up a good point. The DBE program was created during, did you hear what he said? During Ronald Reagan's administration. The Minority Business Development Agency at the Department of Commerce, which has been gutted during this administration's tenure, was created by Richard Nixon's administration. The National Minority Supplier Development Council, my current entity, was created out of the civil rights, but really during the Nixon administration. This used to be a bipartisan issue. Why? Because good business is good for the economy. It's good for everything. People understood once upon a time that when minority businesses did well, when Black businesses did well, everybody did well. And so there seems to be now this disconnect, this change all of a sudden, lumping everything into DE&I as something unlawful. And I want our folks to understand the history. There was a time very recently when both sides of the political aisle got one thing in common. Well, black folks make money, we all make money. Hispanic businesses do well, we all do well because they got to do it through bigger businesses. And so there's been a disconnect. And so you ask me, how do we defend it? We tell the truth. We go to corporate America and we tell the truth. When you give a small minority business a contract from your big business, everybody wins. You've got a better supplier that's helping your big business. That supplier is probably located in a majority community. They hire from within that community. The unemployment goes down in that community. We know Black women unemployment is creeping up. And so it's good for the American economic ecosystem when minority businesses get contracts, when they get an opportunity to participate. And that's what Mayor Dickens knows. He knows that it's good for the economy. It is about fighting back, but it's about being smart. It's just about being smart. It's good economics. When minority businesses win, everybody wins.
And that, I think
Yeah.
that is indeed the challenge now. We're in we're living under an administration that doesn't want to see us, that doesn't want us to see us thrive. We have now become far more threatening. You brought up such a good point, Don, about the Nixon administration. I tell people all the time, my father's mentor was the late, great Art Fletcher. Art Fletcher was the father of affirmative action. He created affirmative action policy on the federal level under Richard Nixon, right? So I'm not saying things are great because the CBC still had to bring them 61 recommendations for Black America. So, but I'm just saying at least they had a concept for it. There was a time where even voting rights, which we'll talk about later in this program, there was a bipartisan push for it. I want to know from you all, and Garrison, I'd love to hear from you on this too. What do you think is the real threat? What are they actually afraid of? And what is it going to take for them to realize that we deserve to be able to compete in society? We built this place. We've done it even when we were at a significant deficit. They are not wanting to see us thrive. And in fact, they're wanting to see us suffer. Alfonso, you dealt with the Fearless Fund.
Yeah.
You're dealing with another case where they're targeting our folks, our funds. So it's not even like, oh, we don't want you to compete with the federal government or this local government. Even when we try to fund ourselves, that too is threatening.
Yeah, Angela, 2 points on this. And I want to just piggyback on what Don said. When you fail to engage with minority-owned businesses, it's not just unfair. We're not making an argument that this is unfair. It's also unlawful and inefficient. These businesses are offering innovative solutions. They're offering competitive pricing and critical industry expertise in sectors like construction and technology and infrastructure. And put a finer point on it, the minority businesses that are certified generate more than $300 billion every year. They sustain over 1 million jobs. They deliver over $1 trillion in total economic impact. So it's not a vulnerability. That's an economic engine that's waiting to be activated. And when you attack them, you attack the entire economy. But the larger point that I think you're getting at, Angela, is these attacks that we're seeing, we should not see them through silos. This is not just an attack on the minority businesses. This is not just changing the DBE programs. This is a fundamental attack on our civil rights. Nicole Hannah-Jones did a fantastic podcast a few days ago where she talked about how all of these attacks are really getting at a core issue, which is taking us backwards, which is taking us to a point where we're going to have another nadir, which is when we get certain rights, when we progress in a certain way, they push us back even further. And so we should make sure that as we fight back, we are clear-eyed about what this means. This is not just an attack on minority contractors. This is an attack on your ability to actually sustain your civil rights in this economy and within this environment.
And I think that is exactly the point. Here we are coming together, figuring out how to ensure that we do in fact survive. We're so grateful for you all helping us all to understand the gravity of this moment, how we can fight back. And please be clear, everybody at home watching, This isn't a partisan attack on our side. But if you come for Black people are coming for you, because we are going to survive. That's all we know how to do. So thank y'all so much. We got to make sure we continue to support our Black businesses and our organizations that lift up these Black businesses. It's Don Cravens Jr. from NMSDC and Alfonso David from GBEF. Make sure you all tap in with them, and we will keep hope alive, as Reverend Jackson would say, because we're going to keep that Black dollar circulating in our businesses. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Angela, that was phenomenal. I feel like we could spend so much more time just talking about all the dynamics, not only the legality and the attacks on Black people, but strategies for how to get out of this moment, right? There's so much that we could kind of tap in there on.
I agree. Like, number one, we need to make sure that we have a strategy that's not dependent on the government, because it's completely unreliable right now, but one that is rooted in supporting our folks. So speaking of support, I know the brothers need support too sometimes. They need love too sometimes, Garrison.
That's true. That's true. Of course, a huge thank you to Alfonso and Don, two brothers. But we do want to talk about some of the things that are happening just outside of the headlines, beyond the headlines. How Black men are showing up for Black men, for each other in this time. There is so much, I guess you could say there's division, there are diversity of opinions, and we aren't always, I think, the first ones to run to places of help, perhaps therapy. The world is certainly feeling overwhelming at times, and we don't always have the best outlets. And so in order to win, we've got to be okay. And so I want to kind of deepen into a little bit of a conversation on mental, emotional health, even a historical conversation around unity and togetherness right now. What does stability look like when the system feels unstable? And how do we support one another through this moment? That's the conversation that we're having tonight with my very good brothers, Dr. Wes Bellamy, attorney Gerald Griggs, and Mr. Devonte Lewis, representing Virginia, Georgia, and Louisiana, respectively. Listen, let's start there, brothers. Angela, we love that you're here, but we're gonna have to ask you to kind of go on. In nothing but love, brothers. I see you. I want to start by asking you how you all are. Just take just a sentence, a word, even about how you're doing right now. Let's start with you, Dr. Bellamy.
I would say I'm cautiously ready to fight.
That's good. Gerald.
Born for this moment.
Devonte.
I'm resolved in what is to come and what we need to do next.
And I love that. I love just the timbre. I love the sound of all of that right now. I want to kind of start with a state of the Black man right now. You all are all tapped into your different communities in different ways. And so what are you hearing from other Black men right now? I'm talking fathers and workers and business owners. How are we making it in this moment? And Devonte, I want to start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think where we're at really is kind of a crossroads, right? I mean, I think for so much post 2020, right, after George Floyd, there was this focus on uplifting Black men, on giving us the tools and the power that we need to be successful in society. And I think what we are seeing right now in kind of this authoritarianism, fascism movement of this kind of white supremacy rise is the direct assault, right, on our sovereignty and on our resolve. And so what I'm hearing is how do we move, right? How do we beat back what we've been told we should do, but how do we continue to push forward on the needed supports that we need in the Black male community to be able to thrive and survive? And I think this is where this moment really calls for us to be ready to stand up for our rights, right? I mean, I think so much of what we have done and pushed for now is being stripped away, or are being assumed to be stripped away in the vein of being race neutral, right? I mean, this is the new phase of what everybody's talking about. And so I think about this from employment. I think about this from job promotion. We're seeing this in higher education, right? Just the fact of us being able to study our own history now seems to be controversial. And it's this moment where I think we go back to our foremothers and our forefathers and be resolved in the fight that we know is to come before us to continue pushing forward to make progress.
Yeah, I want to go to you, Dr. Bellamy. Man, one of the things I appreciate about your voice is the way you use it to kind of advocate for the community. You're locked in with people who may not always be in these conversations. So I want to hear from you. What are you hearing from Black men right now?
I mean, to be honest, bro, it's a lot of different things. I was on a call about 30 minutes ago, but I was in the barbershop a little earlier. I hope y'all can see my fade is, you know what I'm saying? My fade is where it needs to be. But in all seriousness, so I'm hearing like two different things. Like some brothers around the way, they're feeling like, yo, we might need to tool up, or not even like might need to. We need to tool up and be ready, because we seeing these individuals, and to be candid, like as what they're saying is like these crazy white people, they might be trying to do January 6th or August 12th here in Charlottesville all over again everywhere. And we need to be prepared. Like there's conversations, I'm hearing real conversations about brothers talking about we need to have self-defense classes within our communities. Brothers talking about how we need to ensure that we're one, making sure we know how to grow our own food, making sure that we're checking in on each other, like in real tangible ways. And then I'm hearing another population of brothers who, like I was saying earlier, I was on a call. We have a big gubernatorial election here in Virginia on November 4th. And some people are like, well, yeah, we got to go and vote so that we can take our voice back. But then it's like, yo, we hear Steve Bannon come out early today and say Trump is going to be the president in 2028.
Right.
So they asking like, yo, is voting even going to matter? So again, is this more so just about community work, or are we just playing a game, or what do we do? So that's why when you initially asked me, I said I'm kind of cautiously optimistic about where we got to go. And I firmly believe like caution and courage go hand in hand. I think sometimes people, when they hear the word caution, they think timid, they think sometimes scared. And I think courage doesn't mean that like you're fearless. I think caution and courage, again, can go hand in hand, because to be courageous, you are aware of what may be in front of you and what it's going to take, and then you go forward with it anyway. And I think that's what brothers got to be. Like, we know what's in front of us. For some of us, we know it may be scary, it may be even daunting, but we got to be prepared to do whatever we got to do for our communities, for our families, and for our babies, because, yo, if we don't do it, there's nobody coming to save us.
Caution and courage go hand in hand. Brother Griggs.
You know, I just think that this is that moment in history where we have to stand up. Our foreparents did it. This is our 1920s moment, our 1940s moment. And we have to be focused on what's in front of us. So we have to use all the tools that have been gifted to us by our ancestors. That means professional brothers have to use their talents to push us forward. The brothers that are entrepreneurs and businessmen have to use that capital to build in the community. But I think most importantly, we have to understand that we've been here before. And I'm not talking about our ancestors. I'm talking about us. We've been here before from 2016 to 2020. So we have to get that resolve to make sure we understand what the assignment is. You know, when I heard Steve Bannon say that the president of the United States would be president 2028, I'm just reminded that he's on bond in Georgia. So he's not going to be the president in 2028. He's going to be in prison. So we just have to make sure that we understand that we have tools to hold him accountable, but also to lift up our community, because courage will not skip this generation.
Man, you're turning the conversation to something that I think is important, which is about power. And you've kind of talked a little bit about that prosecutorial power that we may be able to wield. But I want everyone else to talk about the power that we have in this moment. What are our options? Where are our centers of power right now? And I'll put that out to whoever. I'm happy to call on somebody, but if you have something to say, jump in.
Well, our centers of power are now in the judiciary, and we have legions of Black lawyers. It's not like the time of Thurgood where, you know, there were hundreds. We have thousands of Black lawyers, and they have to step up in this moment when the Constitution is under direct assault and we have members of our community saying we need to take up arms and fight back. I agree with that. We need to exercise our Second Amendment rights, but we also have to exercise all the other rights, the constitutional rights, that have been gifted to us. When you see the voting rights under direct assault, we have to make sure people understand that we have the tools. So that starts with voting in our local elections. That starts with holding our elected officials accountable. That ends with making sure that the courthouse doors are open not only to Black men, but to everyone. And we have to enforce the rule of law. So I think the biggest tool that we have in this moment is to recognize that no one is above the law. And certain individuals have ceded that fact, and we need to take it back.
Commissioner Devonte Lewis, you're an elected official, so I want you to talk a little bit about this power thing as well. You are literally holding a position of power. Talk a little bit about that in our centers of power for Black men right now.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think power really exists in our vote, right? I mean, often we say our vote is our voice, but I like to say our vote is our power. We are just lending our power to elected officials to enact the will that we so choose. So the power that I hold is not my power, it's the power of my people. And it's my responsibility and my ownership to make sure that I am utilizing every tool at my power to ensure that our people have power. And I think that's one of the things that I think we have to call on all of us, especially Black men in positions of power, to use the power that we have. And that is speaking up, that is speaking out, that is making space in spaces where we're not allowed to be in, right? I mean, I think I'm only the third Black person in Louisiana's history to serve on the Public Service Commission. And one thing that I make sure I do is I'm not going to silence my voice to go along with the get along. I didn't run to be a person in power. I ran to give power to my people. And so I think we have to take that a step further and make sure we're holding those elected officials accountable. And then also utilizing our vote as our power. And what I mean by that, it's not just about the presidency, right? I mean, I think one of the challenges that we're seeing is this redistricting battle that we're seeing is not happening at the White House. It's happening in the state legislatures. So that means we need you to be voting in your state legislative elections. We can go to Texas where they're changing county commission seats to ensure that they keep power in Fort Bend County, for example, right? I mean, so that is going down to the local level and recognizing our power exists in our vote. But if we do not vote and we do not yield our power that way to hold the people that we vote for accountable to fight back and fight for us, then we are yielding all of the power that we have. And I think that is what this moment calls for us, is to be elected officials and people in the business of telling the radical truth of what's going on in this nation and what's happening with this authoritarian fascism movement, and not try to go along with the get along because that's the good old boy system, but it's telling the truth of what's happening to our men and our women and everybody in this nation right now.
Yeah, Wes, I want you to weigh in here, but if I can, I want to kind of push you and guide you a little bit, because I want you to talk about the community-based opportunities as well. That's the thing that I'm talking. I'll give a quick anecdote. I'm talking to friends and family, and most of us Black men, a lot of us, I should say, exist in such silos, isolation. I go to work, I do my thing, I come home, I do it all over again tomorrow, right? And I want to talk about community a little bit. I know you're tapped in, so let's talk about power, but I hope you have something to say about community.
Yeah, so literally, like that was my thought. I respect and I understand, especially where Attorney Griggs and Commissioner Lewis are coming from in terms of power, one specifically in the judiciary space, and then power holding our elected officials accountable. I've been elected. I was the vice mayor here in Charlottesville. I get it, but I just firmly believe that 2 or even 3 things can be true. And on this fight in which we're fighting, there has to be multiple fronts, if you will. And from my perspective, just from where I am right now, the power has to be within the community. Like, we're going to have to pull brothers out of their silos and then make connections. Garrison, I had like, we're more connected than we know. Like, I was talking to my homie, Kevin McDonald, Dr. McDonald.
That's my guy.
Yeah, we talking the other day and he brings your name up and I'm like, yeah, that's my dude. And I think there's so much of that we don't necessarily know because we don't talk, which means that when we're talking about community, we're going to have to encourage brothers to talk with each other. That means like brothers who we may think are corny. That may mean brothers who think that all they do is go to work and they go to the gym and they just gym heads. Brothers who are just paying attention to NBA basketball right now. Brothers who are just like, man, them people gonna do what they do anywhere. Like all of us are tied to these different types of brothers in different ways, and we're gonna have to find ways and happy mediums for us to talk. We got to break down conspiracy theories. We got to break down misinformation. And a lot of that breaking down comes from us just simply having conversation. Here in Charlottesville, we got something called like Brother, Let Me Talk to You, where there's probably about 40, 50 guys. We don't do it on social media. We don't really promote it. They're going to get me because I'm talking about it now. But it's about 40, 50 guys. We meet once a month, and we literally just get in a room and we talk. And you break into different groups. Brothers have the opportunity to talk about some things that's going on with their family. We share, different things in which we can find resolutions on. We talk about how a lot of us have anxiety in this political climate. We talk about things that we saw and how there's so much rapid BS. I ain't gonna curse. There's so much rapid BS that's going on like so quickly, and how we can fight through it and push through it and show up for ourselves, show up for our families, show up in community. There's a lot of things that we're being asked for, but we got to do it because this is our rightful place. So again, like all of this comes back to us talking. And I just implore brothers to not only talk to your group of friends, or just not only talk to the people who you traditionally talk to. Like we got to get outside. And even if that means that we got to be at the liquor store on a Friday night before everybody go turn up, and it's maybe just saying, what up, yo, you good? You good? Like I'm checking in, you good? Even if it means like at the kids' basketball games on the Saturday mornings, us just showing up, even if your kid ain't playing, yo, bro, you good? I'm just tapping in, I'm popping in. Like those of us who know better, we got to challenge ourselves to be a little bit more uncomfortable and be intentional with building community, because if we don't, we're not going to build. And if we don't build, we're not going to win. And if we don't win, our generations behind us dissolve.
Man, that's real. That's a great place to wrap, man. Thank you all so much for your time and for your generosity. I think it's I'm hearing this thing, when you know better, you got to do better. We got to do it together. Let's bring Angela back. Thank you, brothers, again for being here and so much for what you had to say. We know that this moment isn't just about really fighting against the systems. It's also about coming together in community, which is a powerful thing.
Don't leave yet. Don't let them leave yet, because I got one thing to say. Whose dog was that? Whose dog was that?
That's mine. That was mine.
You know what? I tried to keep it P and not mention it.
I was definitely going to bring it up.
No, it's all. I don't know why she had to come and put you on blast like that, bro.
Well, you know why? They said I've been beefing with y'all all week. That's what they said. They said I've been beefing.
They don't know what they talking about. We love you.
I love y'all too. I wasn't talking about y'all. It was some stuff. There's some smoke with the Joe Budden podcast. In case y'all are Joe Budden's fans, we are all good. Everything is fine. Nothing to see here, folks. Just a little argument with the fam, but we're all good. Gerald, Commissioner Devonte Lewis, and obviously Wes Bellamy, who is a preacher. He was not trying to rap for no reason whatsoever. Shout out to Actively Black, also on your shirt.
Shout out.
We love you. Sharon Strobin says, thank you, brothers. We appreciate your vulnerability. Garrison, you the best. That was amazing, y'all.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, welcome back, Angela. I know that we've talked about how these big national stories and the shutdown, the Supreme Court's decisions, or the case, I should say, that's before the Supreme Court, how they all may sound a bit distant until they hit your people right here at home.
And that's exactly it. It's not theory. It's absolutely real life. Somebody's lights are off. Somebody's job is on hold. Somebody's vote is literally on the line. So I'm so glad y'all really got to talk about how you're feeling in this moment. Everything feels heavy to me.
Yeah, I feel that as well. Well, speaking of those things, Commissioner Devonte Lewis is one of the brothers that we just heard from, and he knows this fight very well. He's up close and personal with it, not only impacted by the shutdown, but also by the Supreme Court.
His family is directly impacted by the Louisiana voting rights and redistricting case that just had oral arguments before the Supreme Court last week. It's one of those cases that doesn't just shape maps, it shapes futures. Literally, Section 2 is on the line.
So before we dig into what's next legally, let's hear from Devonte himself.
Born in Sheraton, Louisiana in 1873. She moved there
after her mother and her father were released from a plantation in New Orleans. 8 years she was born after slavery ended. My great-great-grandmother, known as Alberta, or we like to call her Ma, was born in 1901. She was born 5 years after Plessy v. Ferguson. My great-grandmother, Viola, who raised me and I lived with her until 2012, was born in 1920. She was born the year that women got the right to vote. My grandmother, Stella, who's probably watching right now, was born in 1948. 6 years old. That's how old she was when Brown v. Board of Education came before.
Oh, sorry, I'm on mute. That's not helpful. What an amazing share from Devonte. I wish I could have been there in person, Garrison.
Yeah, me too. You know, one of my favorite texts in the scripture says that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb, amen, and by the word of our testimony. I love that storytelling component. It's incredibly important because it moves it from being this abstract thing to this moment right here, right now.
That's exactly right. And joining us now are two of the leading voices in this fight for voting rights and racial equity: Judith Brown Dianis, Executive Director of the Advancement Project, and Janae Nelson, President and Director Counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. I get to call them sis, both of them. I just told Janae, I was like, you need to have your own Barbie at this point. But they're here to help us understand how this Supreme Court case could reshape representation, not just in Louisiana, but across the country.
Live family. Hey, I'm Judith Brown Dianis, and I am the Executive Director of Advancement Project Action Fund. And I am excited to be joined by Janae Nelson, who is President and Director Counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund. We were co-counsel representing the Florida NAACP and Black voters during the voting rights case over the controversial 2000 election. Welcome, Janae, to the Signal Live. So happy to have you.
Oh, I am thrilled to be here. Thank you for the invitation. And that was actually my very first voting rights case. It was I worked on at LDF. Yes, that was big.
So we were in the trenches, as people would say, doing this stuff, and we both stayed in the trenches. I want to ask you first, how are you doing? You just argued a very important case in front of the Supreme Court. Have you gotten any rest, sis?
You know the answer to that one. No, I have not. I haven't gotten a lot of rest, but I'm feeling good.
Okay, well, I hope you do that because we need you to be well and to be rested, because clearly the fight is not over. This Supreme Court case, there was a lot at stake. So let's unpack the case a little bit. This is a case out of Louisiana that you argued that originated with a case that led to adding a second majority Black district, congressional district in Louisiana. And this new map is what wound us up in the Supreme Court. Can you break down for our audience why Louisiana got a second majority Black district in the first place?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a windy road how we got to the Supreme Court, but effectively there was the case and then there was the backlash. So the case was called Robinson versus Landry, named after Press Robinson, an amazing 80-plus-year-old man out of Louisiana who, along with a group of other Black Louisianans, said they wanted representation in a second congressional district because there were enough Black Louisianans who were politically cohesive, lived within enough proximity of one another, whose votes were constantly outvoted and minimized and canceled out by white bloc racially polarized voting. So that was the premise of that first case.
So let's break that down. Racially polarized voting. What does that mean? That means white people ain't voting for Black candidates.
That's what it means. It means that basically not only are white people not voting for the candidates that Black people prefer, but Black people are voting for their candidates in high enough numbers, white people are voting for other candidates. And even when they are of the same party, even when we looked at people in the same party, white people simply are not voting for Black people in Louisiana, certainly not consistently enough for the process not to require some type of remedy under the Voting Rights Act.
Right.
And
so move us through the case after that. There's a showing of discrimination.
we showed that there was discrimination. They said, yes, you are likely to succeed if we continue prosecuting this case. And so at that point, the state of Louisiana appealed. In fact, they appealed twice, and they lost twice unanimously. In the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, which, you know, you may not need to know a lot about the circuits, but I can just assure you that is the most conservative court in our appellate system. And after that, Louisiana said, okay, we acquiesce, we're going to draw a new map. And they drew a new map, and they created one that had a second Black majority district. Some people didn't like the shape of the second district that they drew. And unfortunately, voters who are white voters, when they wrote a complaint and filed it in the court, they said, we want to challenge this new district because we think it violates our rights as white people or as non-African American people. And they brought their lawsuit. It went to a panel of 3 judges. 2 judges voted in their favor. 1 wrote a dissent that was even longer than the opinion that was in their favor. And that means that they then won. And we appealed it up to the Supreme Court. The state of Louisiana also appealed it to the Supreme Court because they wanted to stand behind the map that they drew.
So Janae, I want to double click on this for our audience, that this was aggrieved white people challenging this second Black district, congressional district. So the case was argued before in front of the Supreme Court. And you were there recently on a re-argument, and a re-argument in this kind of situation with this really conservative court. What did the court want to hear this time that they think they didn't hear the first time?
Well, I'll be frank, they got everything they needed the first time. My colleague, Stuart Nafee, argued the case in March. He did an excellent job. He put all the facts on the table that would have allowed them to rule in our favor. But they did not issue an order in June as we expected, and instead said we needed to come back this October. And the question that they wanted to hear about was whether that creation of that second district, the one to remedy the discrimination that we proved, whether the creation of that district itself violated the 14th and 15th Amendments of the Constitution. And, you know, basically what they were saying is this reverse discrimination against the white folks in the district to have this district drawn the way that it was? Or did you use race too much, you know, so that it violated the Constitution? And our answer is no. You don't get to mess with the Voting Rights Act.
What we're seeing in the Supreme Court is like now what's on the line is the constitutionality of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. We already had Section 5 and Section 4, which was a pre-clearance provision, struck down. And so now we're after Section 2, which is really the heart of the voting rights. So let's start there with the reasoning and why the court is going down that road.
Yeah, so there are many reasons why it is an entirely misguided idea to suggest that this important crown jewel civil rights statute has a time limit. As you point out, first and foremost, there's no expiration date on racism. I wish there were, but there isn't.
Right.
And if that day ever came,
you and I would be sitting on the beach drinking pina coladas, bourbon, something.
Listen, it would be a whole different day, And so if racism expired or if it started to wane, which is something we all want, right? Then you just wouldn't be able to enforce Section 2. You wouldn't have the ability to make the case like we did with all the evidence of discrimination that we had. We just wouldn't have the evidence. So there's no need to put an expiration date on it. Also, even the remedies from Section 2 districting cases are renewed every 10 years. We get new census data, and then states go about the business of drawing their different lines. But Section 2 is permanent because Congress, they know what to do when they want a statute or even a section of a statute to be renewable or to have an expiration date. And they decidedly did not do that here. So it would be very inappropriate for the court to do it.
This is that white folks are tired, some white folks are tired of racial progress. And we see that with striking down affirmative action. They put a time limit on that. That was their own time limit. And, they're going after every civil rights statute. So this is not something new, right? They are now the aggrieved people. They are the victims. And that's why they're bringing all these lawsuits. But I want to move to the pretty catastrophic consequences.
Yeah.
Talk about that, Janae. What is at stake if the court decides to put this time limit on it, or to even strike down Section 2 as unconstitutional?
Yeah, listen, the consequences would be absolutely devastating. Most elected officials in the South are the result of districts that were drawn because states were forced to draw them. They were forced to draw them either because of Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, which no longer is in force, or Section 2, where we've had to litigate to force districts to be created, or to end at-large districting or at-large elections, or to end all of the practices that were keeping Black people from rising to power. And most Black people live in the South. So without adequate representation, we're talking about a locking Black people out of a political system that it must rely on peaceful resolution of conflicts, for policies that are going to serve us and serve future generations of Black people. So the consequences of this thing are quite dire. And it is something that should trouble all Americans. The biggest lie that is undermining their own rights in this moment is that everything is this zero-sum calculus, that if we get something, that means they don't get it, and that we are somehow at war over power. And they want that fight so that the people who are really in power can continue doing what they're doing. So everybody loses when we don't have a fair electoral process and ultimately fair legislative bodies that are elected from those maps.
I mean, I can't even imagine Congress without Black people in it. Like, just the idea that there would be legislation that could be taken up, that would be taken up every day, that impacts our lives without Black voices in Congress. And then and then state legislatures, and it's on and on. And so this is really disconcerting. And again, if y'all would stop discriminating, it's not like they're just doing it on their own and being nice and being like, here's some Black districts. No, we have to prove it up time and time and again. So, okay, so I have one last question for you. What can people do?
What can people do? Well, people can, one, get really engaged and follow this case and be vocal about its importance, because the court of public opinion matters as well. We're already seeing consequences in North Carolina right now, right, where there's partisan gerrymandering. We saw it in Texas. We're seeing it in Ohio and other states across the country. And the Voting Rights Act is the tool that we need to ensure that as they're trying to do this whole partisan power grab, we still have some laws that can protect Black people, so we're not exploited as part of this process. So we need people to get educated on this. We have a lot of resources at NAACPLDF.org that can answer frequently asked questions and all sorts of information about redistricting generally. I would say the second thing is we really have to vote and get prepared to vote. In this upcoming November election, which is right around the corner, there are local elections, gubernatorial elections, city council, school board elections. Everybody needs to be voting this November for candidates who are going to help improve our conditions, which are under serious threat. And then we got to gear up for next year. We got to gear up for the midterms.
And then I think the other thing is that both of our organizations have also been involved in passing state voting rights acts. Like, we worked on the Virginia one, and it has been really helpful in the state of Virginia. And so we need to get more state laws put in place. So I think we've got to do that. And then my last question for you. Now, look, I know you said you haven't rested yet, and I understand that after the Supreme Court case, but I want to know, what is bringing you joy?
Oh, man. So many things. What's really brought me the most joy, I would say, in the past week is just the outpouring of support and love, the covering that I received even going into that courtroom, and just knowing that so many people, and especially our clients and the folks who turned out for the rally, they may be tired, I'm tired, but they're not giving up, and they're not going home. They are stepping forward, and I love it. That gives me a tremendous amount of joy.
Well, thank you, Janae Nelson, for joining us today at the Signal Live.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Wow. 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 I am so grateful for Judith and Janae for bringing something with so much clarity. It's such an important topic. You know, this case isn't about maps alone, it's about so much more. It's about democracy and America being America for more than just a small group of people. That it's powerful. Oh, Angela, you're muted. I was wondering why I couldn't
That's
hear
not
you.
helpful. I'm
There it is.
reclaiming my time with my mic on. But you're right. It is more than just the court cases. It's more than just this paper that has
Right.
meant very little to us. We made that paper mean something in this country. And I think that there's also more paper that we have to make something mean in this country. I'm thinking about Proposition 50, which was a hot topic in my social media over the last 24 hours. And it's a reminder that people can reclaim their power, that voting rights should not be partisan. So we urge you to vote yes on Proposition 50 in California, and to remember that your power isn't always seen on paper. It's in the people. So exercise your franchise, y'all.
I love that. I love the Maxine Waters kind of callback, right? Reclaiming my time. No, she's reclaiming my power. I love that. I love what you're saying there.
Absolutely. Well, we have to continue to find our hope somewhere. And with that, Garrison, who do we have to bring us home?
Yes, we're grateful to have our A Word segment to close out this week. And it is none other than Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner, president of the Skinner Leadership Institute and co-convener of the African American Clergy Network, reminding us why every vote in this local and state election season still matters.
Garrison, I'm gonna do something. I'm about to go rogue real quick
All right,
because
here
we
we
didn't
go.
hardly get to talk. We've been real disciplined. We've been real disciplined. What in this moment, to just take a little page out of Judy's book, what in this moment is giving you hope? We are expressing, I'm experiencing a tremendous amount of overwhelm every day. There's an onslaught of oncoming from our people. There's an onslaught of attacks coming from the other side. Where are you getting your hope? Where does your hope come from?
You know what, Angela? I am a lover of history. And so I think back to where Black people were 100 years ago and the condition our country was in. We didn't have a Voting Rights Act. We didn't have Section 2. We didn't have State of the People TV. We didn't have any of this stuff. And yet some of our fiercest leaders were born in that season. Some of our most stalwart figures were working tirelessly in that season. And so I'm reminded, the thing that's bringing me joy, my wife is 37 weeks pregnant. And so we are expecting our very first little one.
Yes.
And I'm looking at him, thinking about him, praying for him, and thinking about the fact that he was born in this time, in this year. He will be born in this time, in this year, for a purpose and for a reason. And I'm here for a purpose and a reason. And if our ancestors made it through back then, we can make it through right now. And that's given me a ton of motivation and hope and courage in this moment.
I love that, Garrison. Congratulations, first
Thank
of
you.
all, to you and your lovely bride. I want you to know that every time I say your name, I often say Garrison Frazier, because speaking of history,
Yes,
you are not only a preacher in your own right, but you stand on the shoulders of a preacher named Garrison Frazier, who ensured that he advocated for our freedom when they wanted to argue us down about whether or not we deserved it. We're still seeing that argument happen to this day. That is what Alfonso and Don talked about. That is the thing that you all were talking about, overcoming in the Black Men We See You segment, overcoming emotionally and spiritually. We are a resilient, strong people. And baby Garrison, whatever his name is going to be, I know he stands on your shoulders, and he will be the wildest dream of our ancestors, to borrow a slogan from my good friend B. Mike. I cannot believe this is the end of this program, y'all. But this has been a power hour, and it does not end here. We want to see y'all in the comments. We want to see y'all engaging with us. Make sure that you go to our YouTube and that you also subscribe, stateofthepeople.com/TV. Make sure you like, you follow, you comment. Let us know how you're thinking, how you're feeling. Stay engaged. Remember, in this moment, you are not by yourselves. And so we can turn it over to Dr. William Skinner, Garrison.
Thank you, Angela.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Over 60 years ago, Black Americans got the vote, the power of the vote, through the 1965 Voting Rights Act, and it changed our literal lives. It was through the vote that we've been able to sustain and have in Congress 62 Black members of Congress and over 600 mayors, Black mayors across the country looking out for our interests. Folks, nobody is coming to save us but us. There is no Calvary coming to save Black Americans. And let me give you just a teaser over what has happened in just almost 300 days to Black people that will continue unless we vote. We've lost over 300,000 Black women's jobs, 17 million Americans, 20% of them African American, will lose their Medicaid and their food stamps if we do not vote. We have people now in cities that have been militarized, have coming to traumatize our children, our people who are citizens under the scare tactics of deportation. We right now are facing the possibility that if Congress does not come back into session, millions of Americans will lose their affordable health care through Obamacare in less than 2 weeks. Do we need any other reason to vote than that? No, you and I know that we are the reason that we will stay in power because we will vote. I am Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner, and that was a word.